Nicobar Pigeons. Welcome to the last episode of EUROSIS. I know it didn't come when it was supposed to come, but it's here. That's what matters. What took me so long? Well, I was busy designing and making this garment, or should I say hollow foil armor for the Warsaw Equality Parade. And I've put in way too much time and way too much money into this outfit, so I'm gonna wear the hell out of it. Okay, well, yeah, the Warsaw Equality Parade was actually a month ago, so what happened since then? Nothing, I guess. I was just too lazy. Sorry. Okay, so let's talk Eurovision. I know it's been so long, you've probably forgotten all about it, but we didn't have the time to recap. I mean, we actually did have the time, I just didn't do it. So yeah, I didn't recap before, so let's recap now, okay? Let's talk about what we liked, what we didn't like. Yeah, good. Okay, first of all, you know that Duncan Lawrence was not my favorite. I was not rooting for him to win, although I did think it was possible. So it didn't come as a total surprise to me. Still, yeah, I didn't think the song was powerful enough. Definitely from what we have seen till now, it seems that Mahmoud's entry, Soldi, was definitely more popular on all the streaming platforms. So it seems like this is the true hit to come out of this year Eurovision, which doesn't surprise me. I love that song from the very beginning, so yeah, sure. I mean, after Portugal didn't qualify, okay, yeah, let's just talk about that one, because really, I'm so upset still, because God. Okay, I'm just still so upset over Portugal not qualifying. It just doesn't make sense to me. It was so good. How could people not see that? I think the song on its own was super interesting. It was a very nice mix of all the things that are good and nice, and why would no one vote for that? First off, he's an established artist. He has his own very distinctive style that Telemovic was a great representative of. Really, I like a lot of his other songs. I've been listening to them a lot on Spotify ever since the contest, but I would have to say that I still feel like Telemovic is like the pinnacle of his career so far. And then to add insult to injury, Conan got the Barbara Dax Award. As some of you might or may not know, it's the award for the worst costume. It's terrible because I really appreciated his stage presentation. I really appreciated his costume. I thought it was very avant-garde and interesting. I really enjoyed his facial jewelry, or whatever we are going to call it. So I think it was Graham Norton who tweeted that, here we're sitting judging Eurovision 2019 and Portugal is already performing at Eurovision 2030. Yeah, maybe that was a little bit too avant-garde, a little bit too outside of the mainstream sensitivities, I guess. I don't know. So anyway, of course, my heart still bleeds for that. Okay, next up. After Portugal didn't qualify, I was like, well, Italy's got to do it. They got to win because, they have a great song. Mahmoud has only released one album until now, but it's a really good album. And if you don't know it, you should definitely listen to it. Okay, so another act that obviously should have won. I mean, of course, you can't have 3 acts win, but you can theoretically have a tie. So that would be the best if Portugal, Italy, and Iceland tied for the first spot. I would be so happy. I would say that definitely I liked Italy from the perspective of the music. I really liked Iceland for everything else. And for music too, actually. I liked it too. So apart from just preparing the song, they are also had this whole act built around it. Maybe you have noticed when they were giving interviews or anything like that, that they kept saying that they are sponsored by Soda Dream, which of course doesn't exist. But I mean, if you actually Googled Soda Dream, you would be redirected to a very legitimate looking website. But if you read into it, then it started to make a little bit less sense. Theoretically, it was like Soda Dream, the purest water from Iceland. According to the description of the water, it was so alkaline that it would just like burn your insides. It was all like an intricate joke, and it was also a reference to Soda Stream, which, you know, we probably have heard of, obviously, and they have a factory in the West Bank, in the occupied territories. So from the get-go, their act was super political, but somehow nobody saw it as such until they decided to display a banner for Free Palestine during the grand final. And everyone was like, some people supported that. Some people were like, this is just sheer provocation. Eurovision is supposed to not be political. I mean, sorry, they've been political from the very, very beginning. How is it that people are only now getting angry about that? Like, generally, I would say that I was quite shaken by this whole situation. Also because a lot of people genuinely thought that this was wrong, and a lot of people were outraged over this. I started feeling bad about the fact that I didn't mention politics at all during my entire series, because hey, I was like, well, who am I to talk to people about this? And people are just not gonna like that. I don't want to get into huge fights on the internet and into lengthy discussions. Israeli-Palestinian conflict is a situation that has been going on for so long. People are so polarized over this issue. But when I saw people's comments on the whole situation with Hattari, I felt like, yeah, I should have stepped up and I should have said something. And I remember very distinctly one comment. Someone wrote on the Wee Wee Blogs fan page, if I'm not mistaken, that Hattari probably doesn't know anything about the Israeli-Palestinian conflict and they should get educated first before they do anything, start commenting on it, etc. And I was like, well, that comment just suggests that if you are educated about the situation, then you have to take the Israeli side. And I'm like, dude, that's not the case. I've read a lot about this, you know. There was a time, basically I've read a lot about Israel, because there was a time in my life when I was thinking that I was gonna live there. It's a long story. Actually, no, that's not a long story. It's a super short story. I've had an Israeli boyfriend. Actually, I've had 2 Israeli boyfriends, but one of them was like, yeah, I knew that it was not gonna go anywhere. That's not gonna be a long-term thing. The other, though, yeah, that seemed like it's gonna get really serious. So I was basically just very interested in getting to know more about the country. Well, I had some prior knowledge about the Palestinian-Israeli conflict, but as I started reading up on it, I just realized how misrepresented it was in the media. The media kind of presented it way too symmetrically. So you kind of got the idea that these are like 2 equal sides of the conflict. I think also, even like when you look at the maps, the fact that the Palestinian territories are shown as separate from Israel actually is a problem, and I think that in some ways it works against the Palestinian cause. We know that there is no Palestinian state, but you know, we call it the Palestinian autonomy, so you're kind of thinking that, oh, there's like a government, and you know, you might be thinking that this is kind of like a political entity that is in some way equal to Israel. It is definitely not the case, okay? There is no Palestine. There is no Palestinian state. And there are some Palestinian authorities, but that was only created after the Oslo Accords in the 1990s, okay? And the occupation of Palestine started in 1967 after the Six-Day War. So, yeah, it's been going on for over 50 years now. Israel occupies Palestine, which means that the whole administration, there's whole military administration there, everything is controlled by the Israelis, okay? So on the one hand, we have Palestinians who are occupied, and on the other hand, we have Israel that has powerful allies, has money, has an army that is one of the best equipped, best trained armies in the world. So, yeah, it's not an equal fight. I remember one comment on my friend's Facebook post by an Israeli who said, like, well, you know, Israel used to be Jewish land until they were exiled, and Arabs came later. So, you know, who's occupying whom, really? I was like, are you fucking kidding me? This makes approximately the same amount of sense as saying that Polish people occupy Poland. Because, yeah, our country has existed for like only 1,000 years. Before that, there were some other people here. But okay, you could say that no one's actually claiming rights to Poland. Other than Polish people, nobody else wants to live here. Okay, but let's say it's the same as saying the English occupy England. Because at first there were Celts living there, and then the Anglo-Saxons came. Or it's like saying Turks occupy Turkey. And don't even get me started on the United States of America, who are Israel's main ally. And second thing is, like, okay, so if Palestinians are occupying Israel, then tell me, when was the last time Palestinian soldiers shot you in the street in broad daylight? When was the last time Palestinian soldiers searched your house and terrorized your family? When was the last time your kid was arrested and thrown into jail by Palestinian soldiers? When was the last time you were evicted from your house and then you were told by Palestinians to demolish it yourself? Okay, when was the last time your property was seized by the Palestinian government? When was the last time your crops were destroyed by illegal Palestinian settlers? That's right, never. Because it's not Palestinians occupying Israel, it's Israel occupying Palestine. A lot of the other arguments that you might hear would be like, oh, Palestinian nation doesn't even exist. Like, dude, they're not like fairies. It's not a question of belief. You don't get to say what nationality someone is, okay? It's up to them. That's why we call it self-determination. And under international law, every nation has the right to self-determination. If Palestinians say they're Palestinians, well, we just gotta take their word for it. A lot of people say that actually Palestinians are actually Jordanians. And I'm like, well, Jordanians would dare disagree, not to mention Palestinians. But funnily enough, you know who the West Bank belonged to before 1967? Jordan. So according to that logic, the Jordanians lived in Jordan. So, okay, so that was all right. So why the hell did you invade them? I mean, that's the main question, isn't it? Like, what business does Israel have being there? And really, to be honest, when you examine it, the only way this could make sense is if Israel's goal was to annex these territories all along. We see it happening already. There's talk about annexing at least some parts of the West Bank. Really, I think that at this point, we should stop having any kind of doubts over what Israel's intentions are. Another thing that really enraged me was an interview with Netta, who said that it is terrible what has been done to their country, meaning the fact that they get so much criticism for all the things that the IDF is doing, the Israeli Defense Forces are doing. She said that she invites anyone who has any idea how to resolve this conflict to come in and help. And I'm like, bitch, please. The international community has been trying to help you resolve this situation for decades now. Okay, we've had the Oslo Accords. We had the Roadmap for Peace presented by the Bush administration. Of course, Israelis generally always blame Palestinians for why all of these plans fell through. I really encourage you to read up on that, and I think that you will see what Israeli government says, that it's the Palestinians who are to be blamed for all of these plans to fall through is a grossly inaccurate and unfair assessment. Okay, now I'm going to say one more thing. During the peace talks that were facilitated by the Bush administration, Americans suggested a freeze on building settlements in the West Bank, because Israel has been building these settlements for Jewish settlers in the West Bank that are illegal according to the international law. So the Americans were not even suggesting to relocate the people from those illegal settlements and to destroy them. They were just saying that they should stop building new ones. And Ariel Sharon was like, oh my God, but these people have children and they need more space. Do you expect a woman to have an abortion simply because she's a settler? I was like, funny you should say that, Sharon. Let me tell you a little bit about the Bedouin community. Bedouins are people who are local to the Negev desert in Israel. And Bedouins, unlike Palestinians, basically didn't have a problem with Israeli state. Generally, they were okay with anybody. They were okay with the Ottoman Empire. They were okay with the British. They're basically okay with anybody who would just let them live their life, who would let them keep up their traditional lifestyle, because they were nomadic people who would herd camels in the Negev desert and work the land that is there. At the very beginning, when Israeli state was created, Bedouins actually helped train Israeli soldiers, because, these were mostly like white boys coming from Europe, had no idea how to fight in the desert. They were trained by the Bedouins. Bedouins would serve in the Israeli military, no problem with that. And what did they get in return? First of all, they were forced to settle down, so their traditional lifestyle was basically destroyed. They were stripped of the land that they have been farming for generations. And they were put in these small villages that were way too small to accommodate their population. Bedouin people traditionally have a lot of children, so these communities basically would just blow up, but they could never ever get construction permits from the Israeli government for new buildings to accommodate their families. So these people would always be forced to build new buildings illegally, and then they would be dismantled and bulldozed by the Israeli authorities. So then, of course, the Bedouins are forced to build them all over again. When I read about this for the first time, I was absolutely appalled, and I talked to my ex-Israeli boyfriend about it, and his answer to that was like, well, they shouldn't have had so many children. And he was like, well, they should know that if this is the space that they are allotted, then they should have fewer children. And I'm like, how dare you? You have no business telling other people how many children they should have. Should I add that the Orthodox Jewish community that lives in Israel doesn't even accept Israel as a state, but they have a lot of children, and that's fine. Nobody bats an eye. So, double standard much? Not to mention, a lot of these Bedouin villages lack the basic infrastructure. The kids often can't go to school because there are no roads. There are no schools built in those villages. These people, so then you have this entire community that is extremely poor because their livelihood has been taken away from them. Then you have the children who have no access to education. It's a terrible effed up situation. Why would you do this? The way Bedouins are treated is not unique in any way. Same thing happens to Palestinians in the West Bank. More and more property is seized by the Israeli government. Palestinian families are evicted from their houses, and basically they find themselves homeless. This whole operation is supposed to make these people's lives miserable so that they would choose to just leave and go and seek refuge somewhere else and be somebody else's problem. And so that they could just basically free up that land for more Jewish settlements. It is so effed up. You have no idea. A lot of the Israel rhetoric would be like, we're the only democracy in the Middle East, okay? So we're still a lot better than anybody else. That's a terrible argument. So you're basically saying because you're a democratic country and let's say in some ways you are better than dictatorships in Syria or in Egypt, that means you should get a free pass on doing some evil shit? I think that the international community has all the rights to actually hold Israel up to a higher standard, specifically because they're a democratic state. Democratic state is not just a dictatorship of the majority. The rights of the minorities have to be protected. Okay, so when we look at Israel, Israel has a terrible record on that. Of course, Israel will tell you that, oh, they're really nice to some minorities, like the LGBT people. I also saw comments saying like, oh yeah, Hatari love the Palestinians so much, well, they should go to Palestine and they would be stoned to death or something. Well, Hatari actually did go to Palestine, funnily enough, and they actually made a song with a Palestinian openly gay singer. So you should totally check it out because it's a really good song. I don't remember the name of the song or the artist. But yeah, anyway, I'll check it and I'll tell you. I'll post a link below in the description. It's a pretty good song, really. At first I didn't like it because it kind of like their style seemed to clash a little bit to me, but the more I listened to it, the more it grew on me, and actually now I like it a lot. So again, it's another argument that just makes no sense. It's like, we gotta discriminate somebody, okay? We laid off the gays, so what's left? Well, Palestinians. No, you're just not supposed to discriminate anybody. Really, if Israel loves the LGBTQ community so much, do they have like programs to help LGBT people in the West Bank? No, they don't, because they only care about the LGBT people as long as they're not Arab. Just to say a general note on Eurovision. It's very interesting for me that another artist who got a lot of criticism for her performance is Jamala from Ukraine. And a lot of people say like, oh, this was a political entry. It's a disgrace for Eurovision Song Contest. And I'm like, dude, do you realize what's going on in Ukraine right now? This country was a country that wanted to join the EU, wanted to join the democratic community, and that's exactly why Russia invaded them. Why are these people not supposed to talk about it? And especially when we look at the situation in Palestine, we have such major violations of human rights, and we're not supposed to talk about it? There are just some things that are bigger than Eurovision. Yeah, I'm saying it, and I'm obsessed with Eurovision. I know that there's this general rule about not spreading political messages. First of all, I think that's a stupid rule, so I personally don't agree with it. Of course, I don't say that there shouldn't be any art for art's sake. That's also good in its own way, but I always respect art that is politically involved a little bit more, because at least it talks about something that is relevant and important to our lives. So really, I would absolutely enjoy more political songs in the Eurovision Song Contest. I know an unpopular opinion. But secondly, like, really, I think that people have the right to talk about important issues. When evil things happen, we should talk about them, and we should be allowed to talk about them. So that was it. I've been rambling on for so long. I don't know how I'm going to edit this. It's gonna be a freaking nightmare. Yeah, anyways, we're going to do some other videos in the future. So I'm really hoping that we're going to see each other soon enough on my channel. So, bye. So yeah, other than that, yeah, I don't know. I don't have any thoughts about like the Madonna concert or anything like that. To be honest, I'm kind of like, at this point, I'm just too exhausted with just talking about Israel. This always sucks the energy out of me, because it makes you just so furious that there is something going on that is so evil, and there's nothing you can do about that.